What distinguishes humans from other species is their ability to think and to reason. What distinguishes one individual from another individual is their belief in what they think. In this episode, I'll be discussing the human trait of individual self-belief. And I'll be doing so by making reference to history's self-believers, some of the men and women who have believed in themselves to change the world with their ideas, convictions, and beliefs. The opposite of self-belief is conformism. There are individuals who do not want to cause trouble in life. They are conformists. They will decide to go along with society as the majority population in their country or in their particular society. They believe in what the majority proclaims, whether that majority is right or wrong, whether what the majority is saying is true or false. In the biography of Chi Minh, Professor Pierre Brochet dedicates his book to the idealists of the world, for whom history always ends in disappointment. Brochet is saying that the people that accommodate ideas to change the world, to change the society in which they live, always end up in disappointment. But these men and women have never given up. Idealists are people who believe that what they believe in is good, not only for themselves, but for the larger society. They believe in the good of the larger society. But over time in history, we find that self-believers have always been unpopular. They have been ridiculed by society. They have been mocked by those around them. They have been called names as crazy, cranks. But they have never given up their ideas. They have never given up their beliefs. In Alfred Lord Tennyson's line in Ulysses, they remain strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. That is their major characteristic. That's their fundamental DNA. That's what distinguishes them from the larger society. Ho Chi Minh believed and allocated more than half a century of his life on earth to the belief that he could construct a new Vietnam, a South and North Vietnam that was united to establish what is today known as the modern country of Vietnam. Vietnam has an interesting history. It is one of the smallest countries of a people that has fought and defeated three great powers of the world: China, France, and the United States. They did this to attain their freedom. And Ho Chi Minh is today revered and credited to be the founder of the country which is modern Vietnam today. A very enterprising country of hard workers. Ho Chi Minh's self-belief turned round the political consciousness of Vietnamese citizens. In the early 1800s, the most luxurious form of transport for members of the aristocracy was horseback carriage. However, in 1886, a man called Carl Benz invented the first automobile in Germany. People thought Carl was crazy. They didn't think that cars would ever be popular. They continued riding horses and using horses for transport. Carl Benz was stuck with his invention. He didn't know what to do with it, but he never gave up. Until much later, society decided to follow and bought into his ideas. And today, the car is one of the most popular mode of transport that has saved humanity. In 1948, the National Party in South Africa won an election and proceeded to enact legislation which created the system of apartheid, a system which separated races and ethnic groups from one another. Mandela was only 30 years old then. But Nelson Mandela self-believed that the system of apartheid was iniquitous. It was an abomination to his society. He resolved, together with his colleagues, to fight and defeat that system that was unjust, not only to black South Africans, but even the white South Africans themselves. In his Rivonia treason trial, which ran from 1963 to 1964, Mandela said something from his dock on the 22nd of April 1964. In his self-belief, Mandela told the court that fighting apartheid was an ideal for which he was prepared to die. Mandela was subsequently convicted and sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life imprisonment. Mandela would spend 27 years on Robben Island until 1994, when he was released and became the first president of South Africa in the April 1994 elections, after his release in February of 1990. I had the privilege of meeting Nelson Mandela when he made his first trip out of South Africa to Zambia. We conferred on him as Lusaka City Council the freedom of the city. What a great privilege I had to meet such an iconic figure. In 1762 France, a man called Jean Calas was framed by the establishment and arrested for the murder of his son, whom it was alleged he had refused him to join Catholicism. Calas was charged with murder. He was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed before a crowd of people. The whole of France went mute. Nobody raised a finger about this injustice, except for one man. His name was Voltaire. He was an Enlightenment philosopher. Voltaire strongly believed, as a self-believer, against injustice in society, that Jean Calas had been framed by the establishment, that Jean Calas was a victim of injustice, and he couldn't remain silent like the larger society had done. Voltaire took it upon himself to campaign against Jean Calas' conviction, because he discovered that Calas and the charges against him were trumped up charges. He believed that Jean Calas was innocent. He believed that Jean Calas' injustice should not visit another citizen of France. He wanted to expose the establishment that this was a cruel system and that this was an unjust system. He finally managed to establish the truth that Calas had been framed, that Calas had been innocent. Martin Luther King talks about nonconformism. That individuals should not conform to the status quo just to remain safe, even in the midst of injustice. He implores us to be self-believers. He implores us to accommodate convictions that would contribute to the construction of a just society. Martin Luther King was very strong about non-conformism because he realized that the world is composed mainly of conformists, people who think that they are safe by simply remaining silent irrespective of what is going on around them. Isn't this the experience that we see in our society? Isn't this what we observe in the world today? That people choose to remain completely mute for as long as the injustice is not against them. They remain to cover up the truth, even when they know that exposing the truth will save the lives of others. They invariably decide that silence is a moral philosophy that will save their individual lives, even as speaking out would save the society in which they live. You have here individuals whose ideas have changed the world, whose ideas in their early stages were very unpopular to the people and the societies in which they lived. But they didn't give up. They gave themselves a task and a conviction that what is right shall remain right, and what is wrong shall remain wrong. They refused to think from the crowd. And as they did that, as we see in the case of cow Benz, society followed them later. So the fact that you are walking alone does not mean that you are wrong. And the fact that you are in the midst of a large crowd in its belief of a certain ideal does not mean that you are right. Those who have made a change in life have walked out of the crowd. And the crowd has subsequently followed them. Nobody ever thought that North and South Vietnam would one day become one great country that country is today. But Ho Chi Minh believed otherwise. He mobilized these people. They became strong to believe in that ideal. They followed him. And finally, they attained victory. They didn't conform. They put up a fight against great powers. Because Ho Chi Minh, in his self-belief of a unified Vietnam, decided to mobilize his people, and his people followed him. If Nelson Mandela had given up, it would have taken longer for South Africa to become an independent republic that it is today. It would have been easy for him to compromise. He had been offered many luxuries. And remember, even after he became president in 1994, Nelson Mandela remained on the list of many Western countries as a terrorist for many years. But he didn't blink. He believed that apartheid was an unjust system. He also believed, without any form of discrimination, that it was an unjust system not only to the blacks, but to the whites. He believed in the dream, crazy as it appeared to the white South Africans, that it is possible for white South Africans and black South Africans to live together in harmony and construct a society that was just for all. A society that will be prosperous for all people. Was he wrong? No. Mandela has been proven to be right. If you like this video, please do subscribe. Let me have your comment. And I wish to end with one of my quotes. Believe in yourself before you try to make others believe in you. Believe in yourself before you try to make others believe in you. Thank you.